Anat, I'm so excited to have you on the show. It's been a while. I heard about you probably like 3, 4 months ago. I think you got in contact with my team, and you had a Katalyst at the time, and I saw a recording of a Zoom call, like where you basically like, you guys should be doing this, and you should do this, and this is what I've seen, and it's done. From a perspective of a specialist of female health, I was just so inspired. I remember I watched it on a plane coming back from Switzerland together with my wife, and I was like, let's do this, and finally we're here. I'm so excited. Welcome to the show. Let's dive into this. So Anat, who are you?
So, who am I? I'm a lot of things, but I'm a huge Katalyst fan, number one. But I'm a lot of things. I'm an OBGYN trained. I'm a menopause specialist. I'm an inventor, a philanthropist, an amazing cook, I'm told. I bring community together. But what we're going to talk about today is how Katalyst has helped me, and also how it has helped my patients who are women. And I specialize in menopause health, which is a really important time period in women's life. Menopause is defined as when a woman's ovaries shut down and we don't have any more periods. And as a result, we no longer have the levels of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone that we normally have. And before, as menopause, the average age is about 51 now. The perimenopause phase is the 10 years that lead up to menopause. And then after that, they call it postmenopause, but what really is menopause? Is it a day? Is it until you die? It's basically the cessation of having these robust levels of hormones. And when we lose that, we lose a lot. And so I'm super excited about Katalyst because it's a way of gaining muscle mass back, which we see a huge decrease in when we enter menopause. But
so Anat, like just very quickly, like you, just from a perspective, when we had a life expectancy of like, let's say 60 years, 70 years, that meant menopause for women covered the last 10 years of their lives.
yeah.
So now we have life expectancies of like 70s, 80s. So we're talking 30, 40 years here.
Oh, we're talking even longer than that. Today, the average age for women is 83. And I'm 51. I'm going to be 52 this weekend. But by the time I get to 83, we're going to be living into triple digits, which means that we're spending
100%.
about 40-50% of our lifespan is going to be spent in menopause or perimenopause, which is huge. And so without these hormones, we have to worry about the effects of that, not only the effects that we have now, but what is it doing to our heart? Heart disease is the number one killer in women without hormones. Brain health, dementia risk goes up, and then bone health, osteoporosis, sarcopenia, huge. We lose muscle mass. We can lose 5-10% of our muscle mass yearly without it. So that's a huge amount.
Yes.
And so how is that impacted? Yeah, it's what can we do? And I focus my clinic specifically on women's health because there's such a shortage of information out there. When recent studies were done for OBGYNs, it turns out that only about 30% of OBGYNs feel comfortable treating women in menopause, which is shocking, being that OBGYNs take care of 100% of women. So what are we doing? What are we not teaching? And there's a long history to why this happened, and I'm happy to go through that. But
but why is that? Yeah. So I'm just like, first of all, like, I'm just shocked at this moment because I think half of your patients are premenopause or just like that, and then half of your patients are there. So what you're saying is about only 30% of the current population in the OBGYN profession is able to cover the second half.
Yeah, or feel comfortable covering the second half. So what happened was, it's really a sad history, but in the 1980s, 90s, early 2000s, about 40% of menopausal women were treated with hormones. They were treated with synthetic hormones called Premarin and Prempro. A smaller percentage were treated with bioidentical hormones that were made by compounding pharmacies. Those are compounding pharmacies are small pharmacies that can make one-offs of, they're not CVS, Walgreens, big pharmaceutical companies that we know of. In 2002, the results of a study called the Women's Health Initiative were leaked out, and that scared women, telling them that they were going to develop breast cancer as a result of hormones. And so 18 million women stopped their hormone replacement. I was in residency at the time. We didn't even get to see this paper before it was leaked out. It was leaked out to the media, the results were, before any peer review or before even any publication. So you can imagine the phone calls we were getting in our clinics of women saying, oh my God, what am I on? I need to stop this. Finally, the paper came out. People have been looking at this paper for the last 20 years, and pretty much the consensus is that that paper was not well done. So many women were treated on hormones at the time that they found it very difficult to recruit women that were not on hormones, that were not taking hormones for hot flashes, and they had to really dig far and include women who were in menopause for 10, 15, 20 years, women that were obese, women that had other health problems that they were not screened out for, women that didn't even have any mammograms. So it was not the best study. And that
So
study,
basically you were saying it was hard for them to get a good control group.
it was just not a good study. The inclusion criteria was just very wide. And what they came up with was what we understand today is that the increased risk in breast cancer, which was a minimal, like the increased risk compared to control was 1 in 1,000 women per year. So because of this 1 in 1,000 women per year per this study, 18 million women stopped using hormones. And I call the last 20 years the hormone prohibition of sorts. There were other physicians who continued to use hormones. They were getting them through compounding pharmacies. They were using bioidentical hormones. These hormones were available from the 1980s. Dr. Jonathan Wright created a product called Trias that later became Bias, which was using estradiol and estriol, which are bioidentical estrogens, and they were available and women were being treated. But the mainstream, which uses pharmaceutical grade hormones, had stopped. And so as a result, we saw more women starting to be treated for hot flashes using SSRIs like Prozac or Lexapro, women being given Ambien for sleeping or other sleeping aids. We saw a whole bunch of medications come out to help put Band-Aids on symptoms that women had rather than addressing the root cause, which is the decline of these hormones. Luckily, there are a bunch of doctors that continue to treat this more in the alternative medicine space, and one of them is my mentor. And what happened to me is 3 years ago, I thought I had early signs of dementia, and I was on birth control pills. And that is 100% synthetic hormones. And I was on it thinking in the mindset of what most OBGYNs think, that if you're going to be on birth control, you're going to prevent having symptoms. Well, here I was thinking I had early signs of dementia, and it took a dear friend of mine to call me out and say, Anat, what is going on with you? You treat all of our symptoms and problems, you have to dig in. So I stopped my birth control and I started having hot flashes. And I realized oh wow, you're in perimenopause, menopause, you need to do something about this. And so I went on the patch and I developed little welts, almost like third-degree burns from the patch. And that took me down a rabbit hole of seeing what else is available out there and looking at the alternative medical space, learning what compounding pharmacies was. I didn't know what a compounding pharmacy was. And I went to a 3-day course where different doctors were talking about how they treat perimenopause and menopause. And I met a doctor who changed my life, and I asked him to become his patient. And I told him I would come out of retirement if he treated me, and I would open my clinic. And his name is Dr. Rosensweet, David Rosensweet. He started a method called the Menopause method, where he created hormones that are in 100% jojoba oil, and he created a titration model. And after a few weeks of being on this, my brain started coming back on. And I started treating other friends around me, and their brains and symptoms started being relieved. And I eventually
Wow.
opened my clinic. And so it's been such a journey, right, of exploration. But I've always been open-minded to looking at other things, which is how I discovered Katalyst. I lost so much muscle mass and gained 35 pounds in the last several years and was so weak, I would go to work out and I would need to take a nap. And when I opened my clinic and I treat my patients with bioidentical estrogens, progesterone, as well as testosterone, which is super important for muscle mass production. And what ends up happening is I tell my patients, you need to like increase your protein and you need to go out and weight lift and do all these things. And I myself was not able to like work out as much as I want my patients to. And so as a result, I went and hired a trainer. And I've done this in the past. I hire trainers and I always get injured. I have a variant of Ehlers-Danlos, which means my ligaments are very loose and I'm prone to injury. And I hired another trainer and I went and I could barely get out of the car. I was in bed for 3 days and I was thinking like, how can I lift weights without lifting weights? And I
Yeah.
basically scoured the internet and I found Katalyst. And I said, well, I've used electrical stimulation in the past. I've used it in the past because I have a pain condition in my arm, and I am gonna just take the dive. And I ordered your box. Your box arrived. It was so beautiful. I thought for sure you guys were in cahoots with Apple. You know, the product is just absolutely beautiful. The box is beautiful. I opened this up, I charged it overnight, and I started. And then the next day, I did a second workout, and all of a sudden I started feeling stronger. Like my back pain was getting better. And I sent you guys a love letter because I think it was on my second or third
Yeah. It
workout
was so
with you guys. I
beautiful.
really
Yeah.
felt that I had isolated my transverse abdominal muscles. With 7 years of Pilates, I had never found it. And I called my Pilates teacher and I said, I think I found it. And she said, what, your transverse abdominal muscles? I said, yes. And I was like, okay, then since then I've been hooked. So I've been completely hooked. It's changed my life. I feel stronger than I ever have. And yeah, I want everyone to use you guys. I recommended it to patients. I have no affiliation with you guys. I have a patient who had a hip surgery and she started using it and her doctor was so impressed that her recovery is so well. I've had patients who've been using it post-delivery for back pain, for just wanting to lose weight, gain strength back, and it's been amazing. It's really amazing.
Oh,
And
thank you so much. I mean,
I thank
I get
you.
very emotional because this is exactly why I went on this journey, and especially like if you do something that has never been done before, and you're a startup, like you have really really bad times. That's like what you have to go through, and then literally like looking forward to this moment where, or like these conversations where I can say like I really made an impact on people's lives, and that's really what keeps you going in that moment. And yeah, I'm getting just very like I'm just very moved here because yeah, it's so lovely to hear.
And so you and I shared the same because I started my clinic and there's big clinics out there for menopause that have, VC funding. And my clinic is small. It's just me. I work one-on-one with my patients and titrate them to levels where they feel fantastic. And to get patients calling me back and say, my memory's back, or I'm sleeping again, or, I can live my life. I had a patient that called me and said, you know what, I'm going to go and get my chairmanship back for my startup because she was pushed out. And that just makes me super happy. And then when patients
Yeah,
say, I have strength again, I'm able to
yeah,
go on hikes, that to me is like the biggest change. And, with women, what we see is when women enter their 40s and 50s and 60s, and this decline of hormones is so significant, it acts on every aspect of our lives. And to know that the highest suicide rate in women is between the age of 45 and 55, is really heartbreaking. And to know that women, there was an article I saw that said that 40% of women leave their workspace in their 40s, 50s because of cognitive decline. And to me, this could all be averted, right? By supplementing and titrating hormones to levels that are unique to an individual. And then when you get women are able to make muscle mass again, and you can prevent injuries, that to me is like boom. So like the
100%.
combination together is just, it's so synergistic. I can't talk about it enough. I'm so happy.
Yeah, so let's take this apart. Let's really take this apart.
Yeah.
So I think what really all women should start with is don't give up, don't accept it. I think that's really the first step, right? Don't accept, okay, this is what it's going to be for my rest of their life. And find a doctor like yours to like really get your levels checked and get them back in place like where they should be. And
I don't actually check levels. I don't check levels because I go based on symptoms. And people want to check levels because we want to have metrics, right? We want to say, oh, my levels are low. But if you think about it, a woman's hormone levels vary throughout the day. And so if I go and test someone's hormone levels and they come up here and they have all the symptoms of deficiency, but she has high hormones, do I not treat her? Do I tell her, look, those symptoms are all in your head? If she came out and she tested low, but she has got symptoms. So where do I go? And this is where the fallacy is with hormone levels. Like, where are you going to go? I could look at my bank account now and hopefully it's steady, right? But like the stock market goes up and down all day long. You can't, are you looking after lunch? Are you looking in the morning? You don't know. So you can't go based on levels. And as much as we want to go on levels, we have to go based on symptoms. And the first thing that we as women need to look at is our menstrual cycle, because in our 20s and 30s, ideally, they're very, very regular. And that's a reflection of an intact hormonal balance. When the period starts to change, even by a few days, whether it's becoming heavier, lighter, comes longer, shorter, that's that direct reflection to hormones. And the first hormone to drop is progesterone. And we have like 100 times more progesterone than we do estrogen. So when that starts to decline, we start seeing symptoms. First symptoms is often is a change in periods. Then it's a change in sleep quality, in anxiety. The decline of progesterone causes anxiety symptoms, right? Decline of estrogen can cause someone to have depression. And symptoms of depression, symptoms of, anxiousness, ADD, joint pain, all these things. There's like 150 symptoms that can come with perimenopause and menopause. Tinnitus. I remember treating a patient that after 3 months, she called me and said, Dr. Sapan, you won't believe what happened. The ringing in my ear stopped. And I said, wow, I didn't even associate that to be a symptom. And now I've seen it over and over again in patients. So going on hormonal levels is not going to do anything. It's symptoms.
Doesn't work. Interesting.
And it works on symptom alleviation. Later, when a woman is in menopause and she no longer has the production by her ovary, then in my clinic, what I do is I check a 24-hour hormone level to make sure that the amount of hormones that I give her are enough to protect her brain, her bones, and her heart, right? That it's not too little. Because I find that sometimes women say, I feel fantastic. My mood's fantastic. I feel great. And then I check a 24-hour urine and they're low, and I worry about, are you getting enough to protect your bones? Because it's not enough how we feel today. It's how are we going to feel 30 years from now? The heart's not going to tell you anything until you have heart disease, right?
Yes.
The brain's not going to tell you anything. The bones are not going to tell you, and your muscle mass is not going to tell you, right? And so what we do today is how we're going to live later. And so it's super important to treat the patient, not numbers,
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Like I can really tell this is your passion and this is what you're really, really living, and it's very beautiful. The topic of muscle mass, I think, is very, very interesting. So first of all, as you said, like with the testosterone levels that are significantly lower with women than they are with men, like, I don't know,
It's like a
10x,
10th.
100x, like, a tenth probably. And then
Yeah.
if you drop off, then they basically vanish. Like that's the problem. But regularly, it's like roughly a tenth. Your ability to have an anabolic response is just so much lower in the first place. And then if you lose that little bit of testosterone, like you basically have like no way to like really gain muscle mass. What we have seen in Katalyst patients, even without hormone replacement therapy or like any hormonal treatments, is at any age, once women start doing this once, twice a week, they just really develop significant improvements in their muscle mass and then also in their muscle health. I had an interesting comparison the other day. It's like, it's not just how much muscle do you have, but also how healthy the muscle is. And they were like saying a little bit, it's like in beef, right? So you have like Wagyu beef, like whereas like how much of your muscle is actually muscle versus like, other tissue like fat tissue and like,
Sure.
water in your muscle. And do you have the grass-fed, grass-finished, like on the other side, like, do you have really healthy muscle mass? And with women, I think multiple things come together. There's the hormonal aspect. Then there is the societal aspect where like just women have a much harder time going to the gym and doing something that they feel comfortable with. Then there is the aspect of, for 30 years, we've been told cardio, cardio, cardio. That's like all it is. So we haven't really been taught and instructed to lift or like to put stress on your body. Then there's the thing is like, if you're not feeling well, it's like, okay, stay in bed, rest yourself. It's like, no, it's like be active, like, be out there, like, do something for yourself. And women are also afraid generally like to lift weights because they don't want to bulk up. But you're not going to bulk up anyway. Like, you don't have the hormonal response for that. You don't have the body composition for that. So you're going to get stronger, but you're not going to look like an Icelandic CrossFit athlete because that's genetics. Like that's a totally different thing. So what we see is in our customer base, a huge amount of just vitality coming back when you're stronger and really having a lot of side effects. One of them that my wife and other friends of ours, like because we've been doing this now for 12 years, have seen early on is basically all incontinence problems are going away because it has such a positive effect on your pelvic floor, especially after you gave birth. So all postpartum incontinence, basically, forget about it, right? Postpartum recovery is like so much sped up and so much more important. And then people are saying like, what are you talking about postpartum incontinence? Like, what do you know about it? It's like, yeah, I don't have it. Yeah, obviously I don't have it. But I think it's an important topic, and we're not really having tools to really address that. Yes, there's Kegel training and there's a few small toys that you can use and so on and so forth. But I think these are just topics that have massive impact on quality of life, and we have accepted it, right? Like we're like, yeah, we've accepted it. And I think the whole field that you are talking about and you're treating your customers where hormones, activity, protein intake, all these things, I think we are at the start of a new era where like, we could just like solve these, like literally like solve one after the other. And that's what I'm like super excited about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we could solve it. We could preventative care. Like if we, what I can't overemphasize like how important it is to like work out now and to take care of your body now for how you age, right? And like
Yes.
if you have muscle mass, you're not going to fall. If you're able
Yes.
to be physically active, like jumping, for example, can stimulate bone growth,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So
Yes.
like there are certain things that can happen that we can do to prevent disease later on. And that's where our emphasis should be on. I was telling someone the other day, if I could like take all women 40 plus and start treating them on hormones, we would have empty hospitals in the future, right? We could prevent so much disease. Same thing with working out, if we can get women to work out. And you're right, it's this belief that if you work out and lift weights, you're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. To do that is so difficult. Look how the women who are able to be bodybuilders are lifting tremendous amount of weight. They're eating different diets. They're training completely different. I'm never going to be a body lifter. It doesn't
And
like,
even
and
Arnold,
it's not
there's
going to
just one
happen.
Arnold out there, right? Let's be very clear. And then there's like a few other people. It's like, it's a reason why they are so rare, because it is so hard to get
Yeah,
there.
it's
Yes.
super hard. But I want to go back to testosterone for a second. I think what's important is to realize that testosterone not only drops for women, but also drops for men as we get older. And there's a
Oh,
lot
yes.
of, but why are we seeing this? So even in men, today, men are a lot less active than men used to be when they had physical jobs. Okay, they're a lot less. So
Mhm.
we're less active. We're also exposed to so many endocrine disruptors, so many plastics and other chemicals that act as endocrine disruptors, which means that they bind to receptor sites and prevent certain things from happening in the body. And so we see this decline in testosterone earlier in men now also. We're seeing more infertility in men at a younger age. We see the decline in
We
testosterone
also,
early.
especially for men, like on this point is like, because also we now for, I don't know what, the pill came in the 60s, right? Late 60s. So now we have a lot of estrogen in our city water,
Oh, yeah.
and it's actually not clean for that. So if you as a male are drinking like tap water, your estrogen levels are probably higher than they should be. Is that
Probably.
still a thing?
I don't know anything about that, and I should look into that. That's interesting. I know that in the meats that we're eating are treated with hormones.
Yes.
We're exposed to so much, right? We're exposed to chemicals that we know. A friend of mine wrote a book called "To Die For" (DYE), where she talks about just clothing that we wear that can seep into our body, and that was a big aha moment for me when I started treating my patients. I treat with oils that contain the hormone. It's all transdermal. And so just by applying estrogen to my body, progesterone to my body, testosterone, it's getting absorbed. What else is absorbed? The clothing that I work out in, right, is all made out of polyester. That's plastic. Is that getting absorbed into our body? So there's so many factors against us. To have a product like Katalyst is so great because you're forcing 90% of my muscle mass to be activated while I'm working out. It's efficient and it's great. I've never been excited to work out ever in my life. So thank you. I am so excited. It's like the top 5 things that I talk about besides hormones and catalysts, and there's a few others. But people are like, Anat, are you part of this company? I'm like, no, but I'm so excited. And you know what else? Testosterone acts on the brain. Just like estrogen and progesterone acts on the brain, testosterone acts on the brain. And it gives us the wow factor. And when we're making muscles, when our body is making muscles, our adrenals are making more testosterone. And so
Yes.
that acts
Yes.
on the overall well-being. And that's why you see people, even if they're not on hormone replacement, when they start working out, when you have a routine and you're getting yourself pushed to a level where you're like really sweating and working out, all of a sudden you're changing attitude, right? You start feeling better. Why? That's a pump up of your testosterone level.
Effort feels good. Testosterone makes effort feel good.
Yes.
And you have this your own intrinsic reward mechanism. Like literally like you're rewarding yourself. You feel good about yourself. Like you walk into the room, and this is actually interesting because so people ask me like, so how long until you see results? Right? So people are like skeptical because like does this work? I've never seen something like this. This is new. How does it work? And I say like, my customers generally tell us that after 3-4 weeks, their friends are asking them, what do you do? And they're like, what, that fast? And it's not just how you look. It's how you walk, how you smile, how you act, how you like react, how you react to stress, like how you enjoy life. And people say like, I can see there's like something different with that. What is it? They can't pinpoint it, but they can say like, you're behaving in a different way. And maybe that's also an effect to this. Like, so first of all, body posture gets better. Like people always tell me is like, when I walk, I'm 6'4", right? And I have a lower back issue. I have knee issues. I have like a ton of issues, but people always tell me like, your posture is like so good. It's like, yeah, because if your back is actually really strong and you're like, your posture, like, and you're entering a room like this, everybody's like, oh, who's this? Right? It's just very, very different. And especially when you have friends that you know for 10 or 20 years and they never acted like this, and once of a sudden they like get into the room, it's like, hey guys, what's up? People are like, what's happening? Like, what happened to you? And I think it's this cycle, like once you're in this positive cycle where like you're getting stronger, you're happier, like you enjoy life more, you're more active, that's because you're getting stronger. It's like, it's positive because it like spirals up. And as you said, it's like, if you lose your activity, if you lose your muscle mass, you fall, you trip, you get a hospital. It's like, was it like 20% of people who fall, like die within the next, like there was a time frame, 1-2 years or something like this?
With hip
really
fractures in elderly when they have a hip fracture. It's horrible.
Yes.
It's terrible. And
it's really horrible.
You're right. I was at a party a couple of months ago, and I was telling a friend about how I'm working out, and I said, I can now do a plank for over a minute. And this is a dear friend of mine. I've known her for over 10 years, and she goes, I don't believe it. And in the middle of the party, we got on the floor and we planked.
Yes.
And I beat her because I was laughing the whole time. I could have gone for more than a minute. And it was so funny to just see two women in our age just in the middle of a party just doing a plank. But, you just feel confident that you could do it.
So I think with what you do and what we are doing is like we are in this moment in time where we can totally redefine what's possible at any age. It's like, it's not like, okay, because I'm 55, it's this. Like, no, it's like I'm 47 and like, when I started like 3 years ago, I started going to jiu-jitsu, and people then like roll with me and like we're like, having fun. And then there are like the younger kids, like the guys in their 20s. Okay, the guys in their 30s, they're like, how old are you? And then I'm 15 years older than them. And they're like, holy shit, what is this? It's like, because your vitality is not the number anymore. It's like how you eat, how you move, what you do. And that is, it is so beautiful. But coming back to what you said, like even with men, yes, testosterone is also dropping and there are a lot of disruptors. But I think for men, there are TRT clinics at every corner. It's everywhere. And I think it's also much easier, at least that's what I understand, is because it's basically one hormone, where like with women, it's like what? Like a handful that you have to coordinate and get done. So it's probably a little bit more complicated, isn't it?
It's more complicated than that. Right now, there's 10 types of testosterone available for men that are FDA approved. There's not one for women. So the only place you can get testosterone for women is through a compound in pharmacy. And yes, I know, it's very shocking. So
why is that? But women need it as well.
Yes, we need it as well. We have women, we actually have more testosterone in our body than we do estrogen. Because testosterone is made and testosterone converts to estrogen. When I heard that figure for the first time, I was like, I don't believe it. Then I had to look it up, and it's true. It was a shocker. But what happens is we have no testosterone that's FDA approved. Women weren't included into studies until the mid-90s. So there's been a lag between science and research and what is actually being used. Estrogen was identified in the 1940s. We've known about hormone replacement and how to replace hormones since the 1940s. We're now, 80 years later, and we've done a whole big step backwards, and now we're moving forward. So, there's a lot to be said for where science is, the way many people are practicing, and for the majority of people to catch up. And I think 5, 10, 15 years from now, I'm hoping that hormone replacement is available to all women, not only estrogen and progesterone, but also testosterone. And super important. But for right now, there are people like myself that have clinics where we use these modalities to treat women and treat them successfully.
Wow.
But yeah, it's cutting
So,
edge, but it's
so
happening.
how do you use Katalyst and how do you integrate it into your life?
Oh, I love it. So I had to like learn all the little things in your app. So when I first started, I was only doing the strength. And through doing more and more strength workouts, I realized that some of the trainers were saying, oh, you should do a recovery. So then I was like, oh, I should do a recovery. And now I was so excited that you guys added the week long, I think it's like a 6 week program with every 2 or 3 days to do a strength training. So the way I incorporate it, I use it for 20 to 30 minutes to ride on my stationary bicycle as a cardio.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do
Yes.
strength. And then I do anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes of recovery. One of my patients called me and she said that she actually uses it to do house cleaning around the house. She like wears it and does her house cleaning while she's doing it. I was like, that's great. I'm still trying to not do the house cleaning with the Katalyst, but use the app, which I think is superb. You have excellent trainers on there, and people who know me know that I'm not big on giving compliments, but unless I really believe in something, and I really believe in you guys because I see the proof is
Thank
in
you
the
so much.
pudding. The proof is in the pudding. The other day I was bringing a 20-pound bag of barbecue briquettes, and usually I was like struggling to put it in the bag, in the push cart, but now I just lifted it with one hand and took it and I said, Katalyst.
Good for
So
you.
good. Yeah, no, yeah. Super, super excited. So it's like very exciting and it's so small. I even take it with me when I travel.
My wife does this all the time. She doesn't travel without it. Yeah, like my wife works out a lot and she wants that and she needs this for her own well-being. Like, if she has a day, she has her like rest day one in a week.
Yeah.
But if she hasn't worked out, she almost feels like not complete and not satisfied. And especially when we're traveling, it's so easy. Like you're in the hotel room, you just like fire it up and go for it. I really like it the day before long travels because
Oh,
like if I'm
interesting.
sitting on a plane for 10, 12 hours, and I just do this, like I have this nice relaxedness, like, my body is like kind of like sinking in and then I sleep well on the plane. It's just like that's really like, where it really helps me. But to your point, like, how you're using it, I would make a suggestion to change one thing up.
Okay.
So you do your cardio before your strength. That
Yeah.
I would switch.
Oh,
And here's the
interesting.
reason for it. Here's the reason
Okay.
for it. Yes. So when you're completely relaxed, your muscles still have a lot of glycogen, a lot of like the ATP is like fully at its level. Glycogen is the second one, like, the sugars that are stored in the muscle. So they're easily accessible and you're not fatigued yet. So during strength training, use all this, like, use it up. Those are the easy fuels that your muscles can get and really go for it. Do your strength training, use that. Afterwards, when you do your zone 2 training, in a zone 2 training, what you want to do is you just have an aerobic metabolism. So what's going to happen is your body cannot cheat by using the glycogen and all the other things whatsoever. It actually has to do the proper aerobic metabolism to really, like, get the sugars with oxygen and whatsoever, like, really done. The
Okay, that
second
makes
effect of,
sense.
right? The second effect of that is you're also going to have a lot of circulation in your body. So your soreness is going to be lower because the lactate that you have in your muscles from your strength training is also going to go away, right? So like much better. So I would say if you want to do like a 5-minute warm up or whatsoever, do that. But do your strength training. It has a warm up section anyway before you do cardio. That's what I would definitely recommend if you do it this way.
That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense because what I realize is when I do cardio and then strength, I feel so tired.
Yes.
Like
And you
like
don't want
I
to do that. Yes.
no,
You
but
don't want to have that,
that totally makes
right?
sense. Oh
Yes.
yeah, that totally makes sense. See, that I think should go on the app too.
Yeah, we will do that. Like we currently design a section that has basically just educational videos. They're actually not
Okay.
workout videos. They're just literally educational videos. We just I don't know if we've published it yet, but we just filmed a section which is resilient joints. It's like literally joint workouts. Like it's a similar
Okay.
section, like season. And moving forward, we're building much more of these training plans. Like functional training for beginners, or lower body workout for elderly people, or like whatever it is, like literally having these training plans and these like seriouses that really build on top of each other for different audiences and for different groups. So there's a lot more to come for that.
Oh,
So
I'm so excited. Do you know why people's cholesterol goes up as they get older?
no,
Okay, I will tell
I
you.
don't.
So this was a big aha for me. Cholesterol is the ingredient that the body uses to make hormones, to make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and cortisol. I know so imagine it's like having a bakery that you're delivering flour to the baker, and the baker is out to lunch, right? Because he's on vacation or he's retired. You're going to end up having a parking lot full of flour. And the same thing happens with cholesterol. So as the ovary starts to decline in
Interesting.
function and the testes start to decline in function, all of a sudden the body's like, hey, guys, I need more estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Or if you're very stressed, I need more cortisol. And that's the ingredient to make it. So cholesterol levels shoot up. And so inevitably, cholesterol goes up. And what do? We end up putting you on a statin to not produce cholesterol.
I mean, I have that problem. I have a doctor who's telling me like your cholesterol levels are high. You're eating too much meat, and I want to put you on a statin. I'm like, it's not going to happen. But how do I get it down?
So it depends, right? Like it depends, because we don't want. Look, we don't want to have a whole bunch of cholesterol creating plaques, right, in the blood vessels, and that increases your risk of heart disease. But at the same time, we have to say, why is the body making increased amount of cholesterol? Is it because the body's trying to make something that it doesn't have enough of? Okay, so, and that's what usually happens. We have to also be careful what we're intaking, because if you're eating a lot of fat, like if you're eating a lot of protein that's like high in fat, also your cholesterol level will go up. So if you stay with lean proteins,
Yes.
but also be aware of what is the cause of the increase of cholesterol. So it's really interesting, because there are people who have elevated cholesterol and they're vegan, right? They're not eating any animal protein. They're only eating fruits and vegetables. And what's causing this increase? It's their own body trying to increase to make more of these hormones. And once you correct these hormone levels, their cholesterol levels drop. So it's really interesting when we look at all of this. And so it only makes sense that so why is cardiovascular disease the number one killer in women, right? Estrogen levels go down. Estrogen is necessary for the blood vessels to be pliable. That's getting stiffer. Cholesterol's going up. It's creating blocks. Now you have heart disease. What can we do to prevent it?
And you're not working out.
And you're not working out. So all of this together, it's all together. And now we're living longer. We have to address these things so that we can live healthier, stronger, better lives. That's what longevity is all about.
Yeah. And it's about quality of life. It's not
Quality
just
of
years.
life.
Right? It's
Yep.
not just years adding to it. So one
Yeah.
more question. So you said you used it with like some of your patients, Katalyst?
Oh, yeah.
And
So
what
I
are they
recommend-
saying? Like, yeah, what are they saying?
It's really funny because, here my patients are starting on hormones. They start feeling better, and and they tell me what their pain points are. And many times it is about getting their joint pains or back pains to be relieved, or getting themselves back into physical fitness. And so I recommend Katalyst to many of them when appropriate. And they call me back and they're like, oh my God, I'm addicted to this. Or they'll send me, like, I'm a concierge service and I work one-on-one on patients. So they'll send me pictures of them using Katalyst. Or, they'll tell me what
Beautiful.
exercise they're doing. So it's really been, people who know me know that I've always been very forward and looking and researching for innovation. There's plenty of innovation that I've looked at that I don't recommend, but things that I get excited about, I really get excited about. I want to scream it from the rooftops. And so for you
Thank you
guys,
so much.
well, no, thank you. If it wasn't for you, my back wouldn't be so good. Like my back pain's great. And, it's
Uh,
like,
it,
how can we get stronger and fitter and be able to
I just,
hike? It's,
I'm saying thank you because I feel so blessed that like this vision is coming to life and it's actually working. And now we need to spread the word even more because I think people have lost hope. They just accept like this is what it is. I get older, like that, the other, and back to your, hormone levels and testosterone levels in general. Is like, so I was just on a podcast recording with Matt Dawson, and he's the CEO of Wild Health. Like Wild Health is one of these like performance medicine companies, and he had a customer that him and we met. We were at a conference together last November in Florida, and it was on women's health. So we met this other speaker. He was a motivational speaker and coach, gentleman. His wife also spoke there. 71 years old, and like lean, flexible, trying to stay in shape and whatsoever. And Matt said like, hey, you really should start like building more muscle mass, and you should try this Katalyst thing. And he said, okay, so I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it like very, very hardcore. So they took blood panel, DEXA scan, and then for 5 months, he went on and did Katalyst twice a week religiously. I had him on one of my podcast episodes, 2 months ago. And his name is Jim. And the 5-month control was his testosterone levels doubled. Like free testosterone, like literally doubled in a 71-year-old male. He gained 11 pounds of muscle mass.
wow.
And the only thing they changed was protein intake and Katalyst. And that is just, it's just, he was like, I'm doing this again and doing that again. And like, my wife thinks I'm hot. And like, it's just such a blessing. Technology can really help us here.
Yeah, it's amazing because you could do it from the comfort of your home. One of the things that people will
Yeah.
look at and they think like, oh, it's expensive. And like I've had this conversation with people. They'll go, well, it's expensive. And I said, okay, fine. Like, what are you paying for a trainer? And I look at my dashboard. I've done, I think, 100 sessions now, and I've had the machine since mid-March. I'm like, 100 sessions, like I should be paying you guys at this point, like for the amount of sessions that I've done. It's unbelievable. It works out. And it's like, what price do you put on health? And that's at the end of the day, it's like
Anat,
super
let's
important
just
for people.
for our listeners who don't know, like, what it is and where we are is like, so the system is roughly $2,500.
Yeah.
And there's a membership to it. If you affirm it, so if you basically pay over time, it's less than $100. So it's like
Yeah.
somewhere in the 90s. You can use your FSA, HSA funds to pay for it, which like brings it even further down. Sometimes there are discounts. So we're talking like $70 to $95, like something in that per month. And as you said, like this is like one trainer session, like if at all, right? So if at all. And then what price do you put on health? But I'm a behavioral economist by training originally, so like human behavior in math. And the way I explain to myself and people in general, like why people say this is expensive is because when we have this notion of is something expensive or cheap, we always have a value expectation. So everybody is paying $100 on booze a month, easily. We pay more than $100 on booze a month. We're not saying this is expensive. Why? Because we exactly know what we're getting for it. We have a value expectation, right? And if I tell you like, oh, there's a flight to New York for $100, it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to go. That's cheap because we have a value expectation. The challenge with fitness devices is, and solutions is in general, people have not been successful with it. And if you're paying $100 for something where you don't get anything out, that's expensive. If you pay $100 for something that gives you what you receive, you're like, I should be paying you, right? So it is that we have to we have to give people hope again that there are things that can actually work. And I mean, your service is not free. People come to your
No,
service.
and it's the same exact thing. It's like, as you say this, people have this mindset that healthcare should be covered by their insurance. And at the end of the day, it's not covered. And
Yeah.
so, it's like, what is it worth to you? And I see that when people look at programs such as what I have or other hormone replacement programs that don't accept insurance, and many of us don't accept insurance, people think like, oh, it's expensive. But when they start it and they take the first initial steps, 3 months later, they're like, oh my God, how can I live without this? You've now changed every aspect
Yes.
of my life.
Yes.
My fitness, my mental health, my personal health, my sexual health, everything has been changed for the positive. Like now it's like, this makes sense. Like, in fact, it's a bargain. And I'm thinking like the same thing, like what price do you put on health? And so that's an individual decision that people have to make for themselves. But I can tell you that not having back pain, feeling good when I wake up, being able to go on walks and wanting to go on walks is
Yes.
something, and knowing that I'm not going to have back pain, thank you, because you've changed the way I live my life. And I get excited to put the suit on. It does take a couple of minutes to put it on. And when it's cold in Northern California, and to know that you're putting on a cold suit, there's a little bit of a step to do it. But hey, like knowing that I'm going to be sweating in 5
Have you
minutes.
warmed the water? You put hot water in it? Have you put hot water
I'm
in
going
it?
to try that. I'm going to try that.
Put hot
That-
water
that-
in it. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to
Definitely.
put hot water in it. But I mean, it's super exciting. So I'm very happy. I'm actually sad to find out that you've been doing this for 12 years, and only this year I found out about this.
Oh no,
Because
we've
this
been
is
in the
one of-
market. Yeah, but I've been in the market. Like we've been in the market for 3 years, like in the United States, to like get clearance. That was like quite a long process because we're also the only cleared device by the FDA for consumer use. All other devices are commercial devices that you have to use with a trainer or a physician, and they're $25,000 each, and they're a little bit less approachable. But from an output perspective, we're literally the same. Like we literally deliver the same benefits, the same intensity, and so on and so forth. But now in a package that is actually consumer usable. Anat, this has been like an absolute pleasure. I have like so many more topics, but we're coming up at time here. I have so many more topics. Let's definitely do another session, and let's definitely dive deeper into more aspects. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for inspiring our listeners. We're going to put some information in the show notes and some links and maybe some additional reading that you can provide for people to dive into. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.